Hello everyone, this is the fourth video of chapter 8 pop culture. And in this hopefully last video, we're going to talk about the critically examining the role of entertainment and we really critically examine the entire pop culture and its influence on us in our society. So entertainment, how do we define? It's broadly defined as to have someone else and something else to amuse us. The else part is the key, right? Really having some, we're not doing activity ourselves and enjoying, right? Having somebody, it's in a way, it's outsourcing the fun. So that means that we become part of the audience, right? And an audience is not yourself, usually, a lot of people watching the same TV show, for example, same sport event. It's a collective. It's, in a way, it's public, right? And that's the key feature of entertainment. And it applies to movie, music, maybe gambles, and maybe games, and sports, and many other things in pop culture. Now, the chapter talks about the case of amusement park and how it's shifted its nature into later called a theme park. To make a point about, to really highlight the issue of the entertainment and how the entertainment works too. So let's begin with amusement park. And now we're talking about 19th century, even early 20th century, really long time ago, about 100 years ago. Earlier, back then, amusement park, we use the word amusement park. It's like entertainment, right? And they use Ferris wheels or those things, right? My hometown, by the way, in Japan, in Yokohama, has a really beautiful Ferris wheel that actually light up in the evening. It's romantic. If you're ever in Japan, in the Yokohama, Tokyo area, it's worth trying. And by the way, roller coasters, of course, was already main attractions, right? It's exciting. But those attractions, it's beautiful from the top, you can see through the entire city. The roller coaster is exciting. That's the main amusement and attraction back then. However, the industry went through some tough time because of the depression, the economic crisis, basically. And also TV came along and people didn't, stop coming out from their home and having fun outside at the amusement park. They needed a different idea. Now, this new idea was the theme parks, which is very different, qualitatively different from amusement parks, because common rights were used to tell story. The story is a key, a narrative, even fantasy. Put them in the story, and these stories are often coming from maybe some sort of like a fable, the fantasy story, the children book stories, or just nature somewhere, some sort of like, ocean story, whatever that might be, history story kind of thing. And in this way, it's mediated entertainment. The textbook called Aikimo used it as example of mediated entertainment because, well, it's usually the story itself coming from somewhere and really puts us, the consumers, into a narrative. Now, although a more typical example of mediated entertainment is something like, for example, TV, some of the social media and all that kind of stuff, right? It's media. Theme park, you go like, why it's mediated? But in a way, it's kind of extreme form of it because it's a real world, but it's a entire thing is a fantasy, and it's based on a theme and a story. In a theme park typically has whimsical architecture, right? Maybe it's based on the quote unquote the cowboy, the pioneer time, and it's architecture that way. Landscaping, it's usually pretty, no garbage, right? Characters, they're happy always, oftentimes. Even the park visitor become part of the story, and actually that's the point of it, right? Put us into a story. An epitome, a great example of that is theme parks. It's the Disneyland. Or now we have different kinds, like a Disney World and all that kind of stuff. Look at it, picture. the character always happy. I mean, they have a fixed smile face, for God's sake. The architecture, nice, beautiful flowers and perfectly, well, landscaping, sorry, no garbage, very beautiful. Architecture that, did you know actually, if you go to Disneyland, some of the Magic Kingdom, sorry, tangent, but there's like souvenir shop, right? And that's actually typical height, the first floor is, but the second and third floor is actually not a typical height. It's actually second and third floor together. It's almost like a typical building second floor, but it's divided and they're using perspective so that it looks like a third story building, but it's actually really 2-story high building. But it's more whimsical. It's more, you feel like more embedded. You feel more realistic in a fantasy way. Yeah, architecture engineering at Disney is very, very calculated. Just a tangent, sorry. The original Disney, we're talking about the one in LA, right? Yeah, they offered 5 distinct theme areas, providing guests, that's what they call Disney, us, guest, with the fantasy of travel to different lands and times, right? The story. So it was a great example of how that entertainment works. And definitely it's also pop culture as well right now. Now, pop culture has been criticized because of its strong influences that it has on us people, as well as society, our leisure life, our happiness. And it's sometimes Disney was criticized for that sake. And I know if some of you are, Disney lovers, I kind of like Disney too myself, but I'm so sorry because, we have to go through that. But, be able to think that way is very important, okay? So Disney is such a great example, epitome of the entertainment and pop culture. So it's been criticized a while by the researcher. For example, there's this person, Chris Rajak from UK. He argued that Disneyland distorts history and presents American society, US American, and I would add the world as free of conflict, which clearly is not, right? I mean, look at America right now, US right now. It's a full bag of conflicts and tensions and divides. And yet, if you go into Disneyland, you're not going to see that, at least among characters, architecture, the theme park, the themes, the stories, you're not going to see that. For example, Adventureland, it's part of the Magic Kingdom, I would say. I'm fuzzy about that. Presents Caribbean, people from the Caribbean area, as barbaric pirates. Of course, not all people are pirates. I mean, it's historically maybe some truth to that, but the representation is very, very exaggerated, of course, who are always defeated, right, by superiority of white middle-class power. Here, can you see some concept that we learned? In chapter 6, I think it was anthropology toward the end, we learned something called ethnocentrism. Can you see how that could apply here too? Certain culture is considered to be less, or certain culture considered to be more superior, better than others, right? So you can see how that could be problematic. And I would even add the example of attraction ride called It's a Small World. And maybe if you love this ride and Disney, you go like, actually not It's a Small World, maybe, yeah, sorry. But for those of you who don't know It's a Small World, the idea is that there's a facility building and it's a ride with the boat and it's slow, right? Nice and cozy. It's good for family. Each room, there's a dozen or so more rooms, and each one has different cultures and their nature, natural area, continents representing. And you could just go around. And then the point is, it's a small world. The world is connected. It's a piece. It's everybody's friends and all that kind of stuff. At least everybody can be friends and all that kind of thing, right? And then all those things, the figures, the dolls, they're smiling and representing their culture, although it's kind of like Americanized version of it. And also animals are happy too. They're not really wildlife tamed. And there's this song, It's a Small World. You know the song. You can Google search it if you want to. And it's really about happy place and peace and friendship and all that. Now, I enjoyed it when I was a kid. And now I go there and it really scares me because, for example, there are certain cultures and countries that are in conflicts and tensions and even, borderline war right now in a certain area that are kind of represented next to each other and as friends. No, there are conflicts and issues. There are tensions, but they are totally, escaped in this representation. Of course, not to mention there's a Native Hawaiian, Native American culture represented in It's a Small World, but if you really think about it, the US arguably has far more issue about that compared to many other countries such as Canada or maybe Australia. But they're smiling and singing It's a Small World about peace and friendship and all. As in American society, US American society is free of issues in terms of that. It is not, obviously. It's not a fact. But it is. So in this sense, you may be able to see, yeah, I can see that how it could be distorted in terms of history and contemporary issue. Now, even, it's not just the criticism doesn't come from the researchers who tend to be, a little bit of, picky and all. Even from artists, maybe a very world-famous graffiti artist called Banksy, right? Nobody knows who he is, who that person is, actually, we don't know. And they joined the criticism of Disney, right? And their way, the Banksy's way, was very interesting. They didn't write a paper about it, right? Instead, they created a theme park, which is ironic. They created, Disney, the theme park based on a theme park, but the Banksy's theme park is called Dismaland. Dismaland, as abysmal, dismal, and all that. It's really depressing thing because it tried to capture all the conflicts and issues and wars, the tensions, their discriminations, and all that political scandals in this theme park. So sorry, this is a real world, basically. But if you were to make the real world theme park, it's going to look like this from Banksy perspective. And by the contrast, it really shows that how distorted the happy place that is Disney or other theme park. And I encourage you to watch this short video clip. It really talks about, it really shows. And the theme park doesn't exist anymore. It was temporary. So this is the only way you can experience this Dismaland. Now the criticism doesn't stay within the area of Disney, of course. It really generalized to the entire entertainment, entire pop culture. Now because Disney and also entertainment and pop culture tends to exaggerate, distorts even certain, aspect of our society, the history, many other issues, right? Because a lot of us don't want to, watch those issues all the time. That's not gonna be popular, right? Consumed by many and all that. It's not going to be. It's not going to be probably so inclusionary either. So by consuming entertainment, pop culture, Disney, and all that, which is by definition is to an extent exaggeration and distortion and all, we expect, because they impact the way we think and behave, we started to expect a life to be presented in a small, disconnected, and amusing, entertaining chunks. Maybe your TikTok is another epitome, a great example here. It's just a few minutes, 1 minute video about something flops, funny. We can no longer think critically. I mean, at least while we are consuming those things. Neil Postman, he's a person who wrote a book called Amusing Ourselves to Death. he feels that our ability to live a meaningful life, so that's related to well-being and all that happiness we're talking about, both individually and communally as a society together, is compromised by a medium, right? Entertainment is based on a medium, the TV, the social media, and all that. That must suppress, right? Suppress the content of idea and make it almost quote unquote dumbed down, lower the quality, the lower the idea, to accommodate the requirements of visual interest. For example, again, TikTok is a great example. It has to be 1 minute or so, very short. You can't even upload a video if it's longer, right? The visual interest and really popularity, the appeal to many people is so much emphasized. Can you discuss important things? The social divide, environmental justice, the environmental crisis, cross-cultural learning, leisure is important. So many important things that, most of us agree that it's important. Can we talk about that in depth in 1 minute? I wish I could. I wish I could. I could do this whole, RLS 100 into 1 minute. No. Sometimes because of this format, we can't do that. We can't really talk about content, really good, important content, really critical issue, really think critically. And when we started to get used to those things, fluff that enjoy as superficial, it has to be to an extent superficial because of the format. That will impact how we think, how we behave, how we design and influence our society. I'm not saying that all TikTok movies are like that, but certainly vast majority are, as far as I can tell, are like that. A good example of Postman's criticism here. Now, the chapter, to make a balance, chapter share some arguments for the benefits of entertainment. It's not just a bad thing. For example, Bianculi believed that TV plays an important educational social functions and roles. For example, different TV shows share diverse values and norms and ideas that we maybe wouldn't know if it was not for TV shows, right? It represents different cultures and value from different parts of the worlds, for example. Role model. Again, going back to the film example, right? Wonder Woman, a strong, independent female role model. Even it's, sci-fi, fiction, but it's still role model. Black Panther, youth of the color may use that characters as a role model as well. So there is a positivity to it. I can see that. Johnson even argued that mediated entertainment has made us smarter. It's no secret, actually, well, this is controversial, but then it's not secret that average IQ level based on a test, right, standardized test, is actually gradually increasing. And there's a debate about why that might be the case, right? Now, Johnson basically used that, and he argued that part of the reason could be pop culture entertainment, mediated entertainment, and media. For example, he noted that, TV shows and movies that are popular back in early 2000 even, was way more complex in terms of the plots and everything compared to the ones before in 1960s and 70s and even 80s. So to understand them and appreciate them, have fun with them, we have to be smarter, and we have actually become smarter. That was his thesis. Now, my example, for example, a movie called Interstellar, right? It was like several years ago, to be honest, sorry. I don't know if you watch it, but it was like, I didn't even watch it because my friend watched it, and he told me that it's a good, okay movie. If you understand some of the physics theory, like, something related to black hole and, those like, the string theories and all that, you could be able to enjoy that more. And I was like, well, I don't know that really much. I have basic understanding. And it doesn't sound like the type of, movie that I want to watch, which is more cheap movie. Anyway, but if you really want to enjoy this Interstellar or a different similar kind of thing, you have to know a certain thing. You have to be able to think certain way. Some movies captures multiple, for example, relationships, and the story basically goes simultaneously, parallel relationship, and you have to remember what's happening in each relationship. And then finally, kind of they get together, they kind of get intertwined together. You really have to understand, memorize things, and understand what's going on. It's cognitively complex. Maybe we have more of those things. Maybe we can enjoy more of those things. Maybe because we get better and when we get smart, quote unquote smarter. Maybe it's because of entertainment. Another hope could be that a lot of pop culture, entertainment, they can provide criticism of our society, many issues, political, other social, environmental, many other things, cultural, in a different way. It has a different implications, different inference compared to, for example, people like journalists or news anchors, or other people like professors and researchers and all those people critiquing those issues. Because when it's presented in, for example, movie, the song, the cartoon, it speaks to us. Well, a lot of people consume it, right? They know that criticism. And because it meant to be, there's that light, in a way, light tone to it, right? It's a fun, casual. So people may be more open to those ideas and criticisms. If you think about it, this is Simpsons example, and it's really interesting how it predicted some of the stuff that actually happened, right? The Simpsons, it's famous for that. But another good example is, for example, people like Taylor Swift, Beyonce. They have used their voice and pop singer status, celebrity status, to bring society's attention to certain social issues, political issues, and try to change the world, society. They did. I don't know if it was effective or it's going to be effective or not, but they did. That could be a major benefit of entertainment and pop culture as well. Maybe pop culture at the end of the day is not just for fun. So really the key question is, this mediated entertainment-based pop culture, is it a bad thing? Maybe it's not just a bad thing, it's a good thing. And probably it has both faces. Can you identify both things? Can you discuss both things? Can you identify some examples of both? And that's really an important point of this chapter 8. And I hope you enjoy it. We talked about a lot of stuff that we do actually every day. Bye now.